don't think somebody else did it from. Again, if you don't want to be on camera, blank out your camera. So yeah, now Claudia, let me highlight you. Or yes, did you give me the power? I guess you did.
Yeah, you do. You got the power.
Yay.
Okay. So I did our little, what was this thing called? This
Herringbone?
The
The
what?
herringbone?
Herringbone, right.
Yeah, okay.
And I wanted to do the little end cap dealy bobber, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're supposed to make a little, like you get a wire and make a hook and you stick it down in
Mm-hmm.
and you catch a thread and you kind of pull back up and you put your little cap on and do your P-loop thingy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get the hook down in there. I made it so tight.
Okay. So before you make the hook, then, so take your piece of wire and about, however long you think you're going to need it, stick it down and sort of angle it up out and then make the hook and slide it back in.
Okay. Okay. That's a good idea.
It's because the hook, you're right. If you made it tight, getting that hook through that tight little hole won't happen, but you can get the straight wire, then make the hook. I don't know if you can see my hands, what I'm doing with it. And then you got the straight wire coming.
Yeah. And then bend a little hook and then pull it back up. Okay. All right. I'll do that.
Yeah. I've had that happen too, that, sometimes with probably anything you do, but I think in terms of jewelry, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you make it too tight, you can't get in and do those things. If you make it too loose, it looks wonky and doesn't hang right. So you got to sort of say, okay, improvise on this baby a little bit.
And I have a tendency to really pull things nice and tight, and
which is why your stuff looks so lovely. So if you look at, and I'm not critical of anybody in this class, but if you look at what I call homemade jewelry, it really looks homemade because they haven't taken the time to make the tension right or make the wraps close, or, it's just the little bitty things that make the difference. In fact, not too long ago, I was at a show and they were selling stuff at fairly expensive prices, and their P-loops look like ovals on the end, and I'm kind of going, what happened to the lollipop?
yeah.
To myself, obviously, I wouldn't say that to anybody else, but it was like they didn't take the time to do it, So
speaking of people selling their jewelry, last weekend I went to Phoenix to visit a friend, and we walked around downtown Scottsdale, and there are lots of art galleries in downtown Scottsdale. And there was this one artisan run gallery. And in this one section of the gallery was all this handmade jewelry. And I went in there and I looked at it and I went, I recognize that. I did that. I recognize that. I've done that. I've done that. And so they had these wire wrapped donuts, the stone donuts, and we put the silver around them. And I'm looking at that and I'm going, oh my God, that is so easy. I've done several of those, right? They wanted $85 for them. And then there was this one lady doing some very nice kumihimo, actually, with beads. And I asked her, is that kumihimo? And she said, yeah. Oh, I've done that. That's, interesting. I said, I can't do that with a glass of wine. I have to, really concentrate. And she said, oh, what'd you do it with? What medium did you use? And I had to think, I went, oh, we did it with wire. And she said, oh, you picked the hardest one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is probably why my class gets criticized as the projects are too hard.
Oh,
no.
But I think a lot of yours aren't actually that difficult. I mean, but some of them you definitely have to pay attention. I probably made that necklace came out to be one of the prettiest necklaces I've ever made. So, I mean, totally worth the effort put in.
Well, you all are.
Just break it down. You break it down so that we can do it. Even if it's a difficult thing, it's broken down into segments that we can follow along and follow along on Zoom. And so I think it's great.
And see, in my opinion, you've actually pushed us to do some things that we may have been too timid to try.
Yeah, you
And
look
I
at it
think
and go, that's too hard, but then you see it's
and I
not.
think our timidity is kind of unwarranted. I think we're more afraid and we make it more seemingly more difficult just because of that fear. And the way you explain things, it makes it much easier.
Well,
So-
it's so nice to have friends like you do. I will pay you later. So
Okay.
thank you for the kind words. But that truly is my intent is, and that's what I was telling Becky about the couple people that said, oh, those projects are too hard. Excuse me, my voice is deciding today not to work. Give it a chance because I try to break it down for you. And I don't think they're that difficult, but I'm open to feedback. So let's get into today. So do we have any show and tell? Did you all work hard last Friday when I wasn't there?
No.
Nobody worked? You've just had
No,
fun?
we had, I think, 3 people show up. Marion for a little bit, Claudia
me.
for a little bit, Marcia. We just chatted and then we ended about, what, 15, 20 minutes in class. Marion had to go somewhere, Claudia had to do something, I had to go somewhere. So, no, none of us took advantage of the time to actually finish something.
I thought you guys would have like 14 pieces finished, you know?
Well, you think, huh?
So before we move over to today's bracelet, next week we are meeting to make up for last week that I wasn't there.
Oh.
Yasmin has arranged for you to keep the same link that you used today. So shouldn't be any confusion. Same time, we're just pretending like last week didn't exist. So we're having that. And my instincts are that you will have finished today's project today because it is a fairly easy project. And I know you're going to say, Belinda, you say that every week, but trust me, this is a fairly easy project. So next week, bring out all those unfinished projects and let's finish 1 or 2 together. So let's start with today. So I'm going to right away move on over to share my screen and go to my PowerPoint. Okay, share screen, Belinda. And oops, let's go in the right direction. Can you all see that? You got a big cover. Okay, so this is the bracelet and the up close and personal, you're going to see things that I'm going to point out to you, but I wanted you to sort of get the design. What we're doing is taking the leather or the suede, and I used the suede from Daiso, which I think proves the old adage, you get what you pay for. When you look at it up close, you can see it's not real smooth. And of course, suede wouldn't be either, but I'm guessing just from working with this, it may not have been the best choice. So if you have leather, that might be a better choice, but the suede will work. So we're going to take, and I'll give you directions in a minute, but we're going to take 2 pieces and cut them, and they're uncut. And they're approximately, depending on your wrist, could be 7 to 9 inches long if you've got a big wrist. And then this part will put the tube on. And I just have regular tubing that I think I purchased it at the bead factory. You could, and we won't make those in class today, but if you this is what you had in mind, you could make a coil here. So somebody said, couldn't we do a coil? You could do all kinds of things here. All you need is something with a hole that your suede or your leather can go through. And then we're going to have 2 smaller pieces of suede, 1 on each end, and we're just going to make this beaded component. So your supplies that you need, excuse me. I'm going to mute it because you don't need to hear. Of course, it's spam. Every time I try to teach a class, it's spam. So here's what you need. You need your fire line or your beading thread. Either one will work, or your wildfire, anything to do the beading with that you normally bead with. A beading needle, and I generally use a size 11 or 12. But again, I think this project, a lot of it, if you're a fire line, or if you were using thicker gauge thread, you could do without a needle. You need size 11 seed beads. You could also use 15. You just need more of them. And I used 4mm beads, which was I thought a nice look. You could go with 6mm. You could go with 3mm. So this is one of those projects that it's pretty much grab what you have on your table and work with. The hollow tubes, the only restriction for the hollow tube or making your coil is that the hole is large enough for your leather or your suede cord to go through, which is important because before I decided to use this suede, I thought, oh, I'll make it with this leather cord I have, and it would not go through my tubes. It was thicker than the internal diameter of the tube. You need your leather or suede cord, or remember way back when we did the 5-finger weaving, you could take fiber and do a 5-finger weave cord, or you could make a cord like we did there with wire, and that would be really attractive. In fact, if you did all of it with wire and didn't put the tubes on it, I think that would be a stunning bracelet. On your syllabus I sent out to you, and I think I mentioned this, I put 1-inch ribbon clasp. You could use those, and we'll talk about if you bought those and that's all you have, how to make it work. But when I pulled out the example the first week to show you, I went, that's not 1 inch. So obviously I didn't proofread that very well. The ones I used were 7/16 of an inch, and excuse me, they're just tiny little things. And I actually, because that was it accommodated all 3 pieces of my suede, but I had bought those, I think, at the bead factory because I think they would make cute earrings. They're tiny and just something, even suede or cord or chain dangling from them, excuse me, or anything else that clamps it. So you could take a piece of metal yourself. You could make loops and make your own clasp and put your cord through the loop and glue it or stitch it like we're going to down here. So there are 100 options. So when we get to that point, if you don't have these and don't want to go out and purchase them, let's brainstorm together. I use the E6000 glue to secure where I sewed it. I'm not sure I needed it, but when we put this smaller piece of suede together and we put it in here, we're going to come back, overlap it, and I stitched it. And then before I stitched it, I put a little glue in there. I don't know that the glue was mandatory. I just feel more secure. And I glued on my taps. Again, they tell you that those don't have to be glued on. They can just be pinched. I don't believe them. I haven't finished off this, but what I'm going to do is put the clasp on the end, put a jump ring in the clasp, and then on the other end, I'm going to put a jump ring and a little bit of chain so that I can make it adjustable. I can make it tighter or bigger if I need to. And you can put the chain or just put a series of jump rings, and that will work. So anybody have any questions on the supplies before we get down to work? Okay, thank you, Yasmin, for spotlighting me. I didn't think to do that. Give me a week off and my brain goes dead. What can I tell you? So the first trick here is going to be to thread your beading needle. So if you haven't already done that, let's put about 2 feet of whatever you're going to work with on your needle and get down to work. So the first thing you're going to do, you're actually going to, let me just advance through a couple of slides to show you where you're going. The way I learn best is when I can see, here's where I am and here's where I need to end up, and then I can go back and follow the steps. So you're going to put 4 of your 4mm beads on, and you're going to end up making a square. So of course, once you get them strung on, you'll make a loop with them. You'll knot that loop with a surgeon's knot. So remember, it's a couple of times through, and then you will have this square. And then the next thing we're going to do is put beads in each of the positions. So here's my black beads over here in purple, and you're just going to feed through so that you get a size 11 going around. And then we'll end up putting beads around. We'll end up building another component, and then we'll end up putting beads across this way. So first thing you're going to do is thread your needle, and then you're going to put 4 beads on and make a circle and tie a knot. So I'll be quiet while you do that. And store in your memory how you did this, because you're going to repeat it 2 more, well, not this, but the rest of it 2 more times. You're going to make 3 of these components hooked together. Give me some kind of a signal when you're ready to move on to after the knot step. So when you're ready to go on from here.
Belinda, do they have to be bicones?
Try it if you don't have the bicones. I think it'll work. I'm just not sure.
Okay,
Because you're going to have this bead setting in here, and it may just set better if it's a bicone, but you won't know till you try.
okay. Thank you.
Mhm. So for those of you that haven't done a lot of beading, a little trick I found, you're going to end up putting beads in between each of these 4, but you've got this knot here, and probably on your piece, no one can see that knot. When it's enlarged like this, you can see it. In fact, you can see a piece with all its warts when you enlarge it. But what I do to sort of hide that knot is, before I start doing any of the other beading, I will take my needle and run through the bead next to it, so the knot gets kind of pulled a little bit into that bead next to it, and you can't see it. If you leave it sitting out there, I always feel like you can see it. So are we ready to go to the next slide? Okay, I see heads nodding. Okay, so we're going to add a bead in each of these positions. So just go through your 4mm bead, put an 11 on, go through the next one, put an 11 on, come back where you started, and you'll have, excuse me, 4 of your 4mm beads and 4 of your 11s. So do we have our 411s on? Not yet, I guess.
The winds are crazy here.
Are you getting winds?
Oh, we're getting, I'm hearing things falling over and everything.
Ooh,
Crazy. We had a tornado here in La Mirada yesterday.
really?
Yeah, knocked down 3 trees.
Wow, really?
Yeah, about a half mile from my house. So yeah.
And we've had very little. In fact, I said to my husband this morning, where's that storm they threatened us with? You know, and he went, yeah, so who knows?
Oh,
Okay.
it was raining like crazy here. We had hail 3
Mm-hmm.
times yesterday. Yeah, it was coming down.
Jeez.
And it was cold. Oh my God, it was cold.
It's cold now. So
Yeah.
cold I will agree with. My heat, I didn't even want to know what my gas bill will be this month. It was bad enough last month. So this month, you know, there's my vacation for the year. So, okay, let's go forward. So you've got this going on. And now we're going to pick up 9 seed beads and we're going to start to make a little end to attach our cord to. Now, pick them up and then I'm going to walk you through what we're going to do because it's going to be a little different than we've done in the past. Not hard, but just a little different. So pick them up, get them on your needle. And then I want you to go back through. So when I enlarge it, unfortunately, I lose my whole thread trail, but my thread is coming around here in a circle this way. So I'm going to go back through this bead and it's going to make a circle. So it's going to look like this up close. And then it's going to look like this, but I'm going to go back for a minute because I want you to do that. So I'm going to use Jeanette as the pacer here because I see her on the screen. The rest of you, I can't see the way it's set up. So Jeanette, when you get all those on and it looks like this, give me a signal and I'll go to the next step. Okay, good. Are we ready? Is that it? That's the signal? No? Yeah, okay. All right. So if we're going too fast, scream out, because I know Jeanette is a fast worker. So if you need me to slow down, but I'm using her as my pacer. So you have this, and now we're going to run the needle through again, but we're going to do something a little different than normal. Normally we go all the way through to secure that. We want this, I don't know if you can see this up close, but we don't want this to look like, well, let me say, you can do whatever you want. This is a design thing. So if you went, that's more problems. Don't worry about it. Just go all the way through. But I wanted this to look not like a complete circle. It's more a little bit like a triangle there. This is the part you're making. So to make that happen, what I did is I ran my needle through 3 of the seed beads. Then I'm going to add a seed bead. So instead of it being a circle, it's going to have kind of this shape, a triangle shape. I'm going to add a seed bead. I'm going to go through 4. I'm going to add another seed bead over here and go through the last 3. Okay. Let's see if I have a picture that'll show you on the next slide. If not, I'll come back to this. So I went through these 3. Here's my original thread path. I added this one. I went through these 4. Here's my original thread path. I'm adding another one right here. And then I'm going to go through this. And if you're looking closely, I'm short a bead over here, which I don't know. I must have taken the picture and then taken it out, because on the finished one, it's there. So I don't, when I put this together on my keynote here, I went, what? There's supposed to be 3 beads here. And then I went back through the original again. While you're doing that, I'll share with you a new tool I got over the weekend. Who would have thought I could buy a jewelry tool at a lace convention? To do my wire gauges, you know, sometimes I've got a piece and I'm not sure what size it is. I have a pair of electrical pliers, and they're really good, but they go from a 10 to a 20 gauge. And when you drop below a 20, I also have a round one, but it only goes up to 20. And I like these because I think maybe you can see it better on this side. I can slip the wire through and it tells me in metrics as well as an American gauge what size it is. But when you get to the real tiny, tiny little wires, it's harder to find. Well, there's a thing called a pin gauge for your straight pins. And this one happens to be Koala Bear. But it's got all these holes here for pins, and they're really tiny. So the biggest one takes my 24 gauge wire, and it keeps going down to, I haven't gone upstairs to get it, but I'm guessing it goes even smaller than my 34 gauge wire. And she only had one, or I would have bought a bunch and asked you guys if you wanted them, but this one was only $6, and that's pretty good for a helpful little tool. So I'll see if I can find a link someplace for anybody that's interested, but I cannot tell you how sometimes I will have a piece, a scrap, and I can't tell because I wasn't really good at organizing like Jeanette is. I can't tell what gauge it is. And if I can tell you it's a heavier gauge or a finer gauge, but if it's important that I have 26 gauge, I can't tell the difference in my hand between 24 and 26. So I was so thrilled when I saw that. I thought, that's pretty good. Are we ready? Okay, Jeanette's nodding her head. So you have this circle going on. You finished it up. We're going to do the same thing for number 2 or 3 and 3. So you've finished this one up here at the top. So run your needle down so that you get to the bottom and put on 4 more. And what was the bottom of your first component is now the top of your first component, of your second component. So I don't know, what I see on my screen is you guys, or not all of you, but some of you. If my slide shows the whole thing, so I'm hoping you're seeing this. So I'll run my cursor on over here. Here's what you just did. Run your needle down, coming out here, put on 4, so it's going to make another circle, and do exactly what you did on number 1. Once you make the circle, add your 4, this time 3 seed beads, because you already have 1, so you'll add 1 here, 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 and then run your needle all the way through so that what was your bottom seed bead, or your second one you added, becomes the top one of the third component, and do the same thing.
Belinda,
Uh-huh.
this is Mary, and I'm a little behind. I just went through the 4 bicones and I made the surgeon's knot. At
Okay.
that point, did you say to go through the 4 bicones again or not?
If you, let me preface this with, you're going to be going through these beads a number of times, probably. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter if you have to, but what I need you to do, you have these 4 little 11s on.
No, I'm doing that now.
So that if
So
it means you go
you
through
take
the
one
bicone
bead,
again. Yeah.
one bead and go through each one?
Yeah, go through the bicone, add 111, go through the bicone, add 111, go through the bicone, add 111, and go through and add 111, which it becomes your top bead to make the circle.
Okay. So all of these kind of fit between
Yes,
the little holes in the bicones.
yeah, which is,
There
I'm
isn't
curious-
anything on top.
no, not yet. That'll be our last step. And I'm
I-
curious, whoever said, and I've forgotten, could we not use bicones? I'm wanting to think that was Marcia, but if I'm wrong, sorry. If you're not using bicones, let us know how it works out.
Okay, now I've got the 4 little 11s all in the corners,
Okay,
or
so
creating corners.
now you're gonna make whichever your last 11 was, you're gonna make
Okay.
this circle. So you're gonna add those beads, and let me just go back to show you the slide again. So you're going to add 9 seed beads.
You add 9 all at once?
Yeah, all at once, like the slide.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, got 9.
Okay, so now you're gonna go back through that top 11. So it makes, a
Okay,
circle. So it looks like this.
Through the one that was the first bead that I put on, or the last bead that I put on?
Wherever your needle is, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
As
okay.
long as you have the 4 seed beads on, and then you're gonna make a circle through one of them.
Okay. All right, got it.
Okay, so now you're gonna go back through that circle you just made, but you're not gonna go all at once through it. So you're gonna go through the first 3,
The first 3.
add a seed bead,
The first 3. Okay, I went through the first 3,
add a seed bead,
add 1 seed bead.
go through the next 4,
Okay, go through the next 4. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4.
add a seed bead,
Add 1 seed bead.
and go through your last 3.
Last 3. Looks like a jumble of wire or thread here.
Yeah,
Let's hope it doesn't knot on me.
so tension it up a little bit. You know, my slide is messy because I wanted you to see the thread path, but you want to get that tight. And then run your needle down so that this bead here where my cursor is your top bead. And you're going to run your needle down so you're coming out of the bottom. If that's the top, the seed bead directly opposite it. So here's the circle I made on this slide. I want my needle to come down out of this bead so that I can add 4 more and repeat the same thing I did here.
You kind of lost me on that last step.
Okay, so are you looking at the slide?
I'm
So,
looking at the slide,
okay, here's
and I've
my,
got a circle that kind of looks like that.
that's what you should have. So then take your needle, whichever direction you're going, and end up coming out of this seed bead here at the bottom. So we're making 3 of these components. So this one is finished. Now you're going to make the second one. So what is the bottom of your finished component now looks like this. It's the top of this one. So now you'll add, you're coming out of the bottom, you add 4 more. Then you go around and add these 3 missing 11s so that you end up with a component that looks exactly like this minus this loop. You don't need this loop till you get to the other side of the 3rd component.
Okay, so you don't drag the thread across, you
No,
put it through
everything-
the beads?
Everything's inside. We'll be going across and down when we get this core done. We'll be doing the top of the beads.
Okay. God. This is tiny. It's hard to see.
Yeah.
And then I had a loop that I didn't know where that came from. So I managed to get rid of that loop.
Yeah. Some days are better than others.
So you're directly across and then you start the whole process again, in other words.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for the refresher.
Here it is up close. So you start the next process and then add another 11. And remember, all of you, to keep tightening these, because my thread path, when I try to take pictures, I want you to be able to see as well as I can get it, the thread, but you don't want this loopy stuff going on here in your finished piece. Even this needs to be tighter. I don't want to see that.
The circle's not regular. It's got some beads seem to pooch out and some
Yeah,
fall in
probably
line.
the size of the bead.
Uh,
On this one, I think that I took the pictures, and I'm guessing from looking at this that I did, they look like metal beads, and they didn't quite work, so I had to take it out and put in seed beads. But I thought metal would work nicely, but I can't remember why it didn't quite work, but it obviously I made a choice someplace.
Belinda, that little contrasting circle, that's going to lay across the top eventually?
No, this little piece, that's a really good question, is the little piece that the leather hooks into or the suede hooks into.
Oh,
Okay, and you're going to have another one of those at the end of the third component. So here was component 1, and we made this. Now we're doing component 2, and then we'll do component 3 and make that, and then we'll go back and put all these beads that are sitting on top. So
okay.
you will look, before you do the ones on top, it will look like this.
So this second little bicone 4 beads, they're anchored on that single bead 11.
Yep, they're coming right through here. This, if we counted, this one is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. This is now number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 we'll set in here. And then we'll needle around to get back to number 3 and start over again. So it will look like this.
Okay. And the bicones, you only have to go through one time to get them all lined up?
You should, but you'll be going through them again when you start
Add
to
the
put
beads.
the top on. Yeah. So I've been working on the projects for next session, and I'm really excited by them. I think you guys, I hope to have them all done to show you next week, but I think you will also be excited. There are a couple really fun things. And yes, Marilyn, we are working on the soldering and stamping.
I thought we couldn't do that on Zoom.
No, we remember we're meeting. Well, let me put a caveat there. We're supposed to be meeting 3 weeks on Zoom, 1 week in person. So each month,
Oh, okay.
April will have one time. So I'm planning it that we do that on the in-person time, but until they get back to me and actually confirm that. And then maybe I can figure out how to do it on Zoom. The problem with Zoom doing it is, I mean, there are safety issues and I want to make sure nobody gets hurt, but I don't want you all to have to go out and buy a soldering iron, you know, so, or torch. So if we do it together, there's enough of us that can bring ours in to share, that it doesn't go to an extra expense. You know, when I plan these projects, there's so many that I know I told all of you when I first started teaching this, if I don't like the project, we're not doing it. So if I wouldn't wear it, I'm not going to waste my time teaching you. So it's you know, kind of like Belinda's the B word there. But I
That's
also
B for beater.
yeah, there you go. I also try to keep in mind the cost, because I know, you know, this is a hobby, I guess, like a lot of hobbies, but this is a hobby that you could go buy a nice piece of Tiffany jewelry once a year and spend less than you spend on supplies making jewelry. So it can be expensive. So I try to be wary of that.
Linda,
Uh-huh.
speaking of supplies, I got beads from 2 different people that I'm hoping when we do a meeting in person, I'm just going to lay it all out there and tell everybody to take what they want.
Oh, how nice.
Because I already have too many beads, so I want to share what the extras I got. And believe me, I've been loading up the garage.
Well, you know, I was actually thinking one of the days we get together, we might just do a swap like that, because I'm sure all of us have things that we bought along the way, you know, findings or wire that we think we'll never use again. And I thought we could just set up a table and people could take what they want, or, you know, use what they want. So thank you for reminding me of us doing that.
So there is a chance that it would only be one time that we would meet?
No, 2 times. What Becky was on, I'm guessing from your
my computer's about to die, so it took me a half hour to get online, so.
Well, and Becky, this was a couple of weeks ago. Becky, Yasmin couldn't start us, and so Becky was on, and we were all talking about when we get together, and because I was under the assumption we were just going to all be together next session.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, wait, I didn't know that. So what we sort of negotiated, because of the difficulty getting on the internet at a facility, so that wouldn't let us all be together, is we're going to try 3 weeks Zooming for those people who love Zooming, and then 1 week at the end of the month. So it would be the end of April and the end of May together. And she's looking at whether it's at the church, St. Isidora, or the Jewish Community Center. So where we left it is she was going to see if there was space for us. So I've been working on the assumption there is, but until she tells me for sure, I guess they could always cancel that and say we're Zooming.
Okay.
So but we regardless, the weather should be good in April and May. We will get together one way or another, at least one time, even if we have to schedule it at my studio. So we could do that, you know, or if we have to do it in the park or something, because I know some of you are desperate to be.
Yes.
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 I always.
Yeah, I'm about. Well, I'm muted. Mute. I'm about zoomed out.
Well, Zoom, my experience really is Zoom is a love-hate relationship. Some people love it and some people hate it, you know?
Yeah, I can't, the projects are, I need to be, it's not working for me, so.
I get that.
As much as I
Melinda,
love
are you
everybody,
still-
yeah.
Belinda, are you still thinking about doing the trip downtown?
Yes, but I was, before my conference, I was thinking this Wednesday, and then they started saying it was. So I don't think we want to do rain. So let's give it a couple weeks and it may not be actually until the next session starts, because I'm supposed to be teaching my wire lace jewelry in Walla Walla, Washington, the 17th and 18th of March. And my husband and I are going to kind of leave a week early and go make a vacation out of it on the way up, just sightsee. So that would put me back like the 22nd or something, which the session is almost starting. So we will go downtown. We will have a fun day, and it will happen before the end of next session, but probably not before the beginning of next session. And we're shooting for a Wednesday because that seemed to be the day most of you, it seemed to be the day most of you could do it, and we don't have to deal with the weekend traffic downtown or the weekend people. Okay, do we have our 3 components?
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna now repeat what you did in the beginning. So come out of this 11, add your 9 beads, go around just like you did here, adding 1 on each side. So you end up with that little kind of weird shape.
Belinda, I'm sorry, I'm having short-term memory problems evidently today. I skipped breakfast. Once you get the 9 beads on, you go around through that anchor bead that you started with?
Yes. So you go
And then
all the way around and then go through 3.
Okay.
I think I know what I did here, why there's only 2 on my pictures. I apologize for that. I made it with 2, 4, and 2, and then my suede didn't go through. So that's why I'm telling you 3, 4, and 3. So because my pictures are consistent, but I wouldn't have redone it unless there was a reason.
And then you go around 3 more?
After you put on this one up here, you go through 4, add 1
Oh.
here, and go through the last 3, and actually go through the first one you started with. Again, tighten all that up.
Okay, so you go through that original anchor bead there.
Right. So you end up with your loop on both ends.
So you have 9 beads that you put at once, the anchor bead, and then the 2 additional ones that you put
Correct.
on after 3.
Correct. And it will look
Okay.
like this, minus the stuff we're going to put on the top. And when you're ready to do the stuff on the top, let me know.
Okay. You want to know when we added that loop?
When you get done with that loop and you're ready to do these on the top,
Okay.
we'll go to that next step.
Where do you want your thread coming out of at this point?
It's probably going to be coming out of this first,
The little anchor
first
bead?
11. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So are we there, Miriam?
Yes.
And Jeanette, are we there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I want to talk about putting these beads on the top. I'm going to show you what I did. If your thread path isn't exactly the same, it doesn't matter. No one will see it. You're going to see it on my my slides here because they're so large. But what you want to end up with, and we're going to go in one direction and then the other, you want to end up eventually, no matter how you get it there, with 3 beads in one direction. So if I counted, I'm going vertical here. This was my original bead that's already on there. So on the top, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3. And then horizontally, I'm also going to have 3, but what was number 2 here counts as number 2. So I'm going to add initially 3 beads. And then I'm going to add a bead over here and a bead over here. And how I make that happen is going to be pretty much, I'm not going to say just now go do it. I'm going to show you what I did. So don't anybody stress out. But if you can't do it exactly the way I did it, it doesn't matter. It's wherever you can get your needle through. So, and you're going to want this, again, I tried to work mine so that you could end up seeing my thread path. And my, you can see this thread, which to me is ugly. I made that comment earlier. It looks homemade. So you're going to want to tension up much better than I did. And if you find for some reason, your seed beads are not tensioning in there nicely, then don't be afraid to add another bead. It's not, the number isn't going to kill us. So let's go back to the first one with the first thread path. So I had my needle up here and I'm just working it down to this position. So it's going to come out right before this bottom bead. Now, if you want to go this way, fine, but I'm showing you what I did. So I've got it around here. I'm coming out here. And I'm going to add 3 beads. 3 seed beads. So here you can see 2 of my seed beads. And this is where we're going over the top, Miriam. So it will come out here and I'm going down through this bead. So if we're looking at these and we go clockwise, this is bead 1, bead 2, bead 3, bead 4. I'm coming out of bead 2 and I'm going to go through the top of bead 4. Which will pull those 3 beads right across the top of that hole. So here's where up close, I'm coming out of this bead, bead 2. I added the 3 beads. I'm going through the top of bead 4. Now, when you get that, let me know because I'll take you to the next step and I don't want to go too fast and confuse you.
I've got to redo my needle. I went through the wrong beads.
I'm working on a project for you guys for next session. And every time I tensioned, I unthreaded my needle every time. So I would have to rethread the needle, not without a few words. And it's a good thing we weren't videotaping me. Are we ready?
Well, I haven't threaded my needle yet, but
Okay.
you
All
go on.
Okay, well, I'll let you thread. It looks like Jeanette's still working too, so,
Belinda, my little tube beads are on a truck between Oregon and here, and I don't think they're gonna make it over the grapevine at least until
Oh.
Monday.
Isn't this weather something? Yeah, that's it. We're planning on driving up to Walla Walla. Originally, when they asked me to come teach, I thought, oh, this will be like so cool. We'll get a vacation, we'll go to places we haven't been up there. And now I keep looking at the weather and going, I don't know if I want to drive over snow. I won't drive, but as I've aged, I have become a worse backseat driver. So I don't want my husband to pull over and throw me out of the car at some point. Yeah. If you guys get a text from me that says help, I'm off the road someplace between here and Washington.
1, 2, 3.
I'll send you local phone numbers where you can call and get saved. A couple of them have really great ranches up there, so.
Ah. I don't admit to him that I'm getting bad, but I know to myself I'm getting worse. You know, that it's like, did you see that? What are you doing?
Okay.
Okay, so
Finished.
you're finished. Okay, so we've got those 3 on. So here's another view. And now we're gonna tighten those up. And you're coming out of this bead right here. So you're going to add a bead and come through your center. And that will put the bead that's going to set right here. Notice when I'm going through, I'm not going through my seed bead that's sitting down here. I'm just going through the bicone. So that bead will set here. If I went through the size 11 here, it would not set nicely on top.
Is the direction important, which way you go through that center bead?
Absolutely not.
Because you're going towards the little loop.
Yeah, I just came out here and I'm just going through, because what I'm going to end up doing on the other side, adding a bead here and going through this bead. The only way it might be important is I want to end up back, excuse me, down here. So if I came out this side, I'd have to needle around all the way that way, where I only have to needle this way, but that it just to get my needle down there. It's not significant to how it's going to look. Just might be a little more work.
That's going to be the next step through that.
So here's where I've got the 3 we just added. Here's the 1 you just added. Now you're going to add 1 and you're going to go through. I went this way through the bead because otherwise I'd have to come back all the way around. So I'm going to go this way and I'm going to be setting over here and ready to repeat. So before I take you to the repeat, let's get you that first series lined up there.
Linda, we're not supposed to do the middle one yet? The middle,
The middle component.
yes,
Okay, you are done with the first component. You have all the beads?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're gonna, we're gonna repeat what we just did. So remember, what we did is we came out of this one and we went up this way. So you don't have to go all the way to the bottom. You could come, take your needle, it's coming out of this one, and put it through here so that it's setting here. And then you'll repeat. So this now becomes this one. You put on 3 and come around. So we came out here, we put on the 3 and we're gonna come down over here. So it's backwards. Now, if that doesn't work for you, it's just the reverse of what we did here. Because remember, we came out of here, we added the 3 and we went up here. If that confuses your brain, because I know some days my brain goes, what? Just needle all the way down. So you're coming out of this one the same as you were coming out here. Is that making sense?
Do you go through that little bead that's between the
No,
two
no.
bicones?
I'm just coming through here and it's the thread path. Let's see if I've got the next slide. I can't
Oh,
remember what the
okay.
next slide is. You can see all the thread down here. I just went up through this guy here. And
So
now
you just bypassed that little bead?
I just bypassed him. See my thread path
Okay.
in here?
But then that thread will show, right?
It shouldn't if you tension it all up.
Okay.
And if your beads are big enough, if my beads were too small in here, I'd see all kinds of thread, and I do see the thread I don't like here, not on my finished piece as much, but here I can see it. I would have probably, if I were to do this piece over again and didn't want to change my beads, I might consider adding another bead wherever it's weird looking. So, or if I'm using 11s, go to more 15s. So just if I don't like that thread path. So now if I'm going this way, I could easily go across with the 3 this way instead of this way. So whatever it's going to take to get 3 and then 1 on each side of the center. So let's see what my next slide is. So here, I did go through the center one. And it didn't make a big difference. Here, I'm not going through the center one. But I'm going to end up like this. And whatever thread path you have to do to make that happen. So you have your core of 3 that either went horizontally and you added 1 vertically on the top and bottom, or you had, depending on how you looked at it, your 3 that went vertically and you added 1 on the side of each of the center horizontally.
Belinda, can you do it so you don't have a cross and you just have a line going right through the center on all of them?
You could do whatever you wanted. It's
Okay.
your jewelry. So if you like that look, yeah, go for it.
Okay.
And this, this is just, it looks so huge, blown up. But if you looked at my finished piece, it's just a tiny little bit of embellishment that you actually wouldn't even need if you didn't want to put that on there. It's not as big as this looks.
Okay.
Because on this slide, it really looks like that's the thing that stands out.
Belinda, could you repeat where your thread is right before you add the single bead that completes the cross.
That completes the cross. Okay, so let's go back here. So here's where my thread is coming out of the center. And on this one, which you can't see, is the last bead. And then I went through that bicone.
Okay.
And when you tension that all up, it should set pretty nicely.
Okay, so you're not going through that 11 bead with the thread path.
Well, on one I did, and well, no, I guess it was this one I did. And then one of the slides and one I didn't. So it doesn't matter. And you're not going to do it here, because if you go through here, it will cause this to stand up and not sit on top. And when you get it all done and you have your crosses on each one, tension, tension, tension. Go back and make sure it's nice and smooth and your thread isn't showing like it is on mine. I also found, because you know I'm pretty anal about my jewelry not falling apart, I was kind of worried. So I just had some extra thread. I just wove through as much as I could through my bicones again to give that a little bit more security. And then make a double knot around your core thread, whatever's in there, run your needle through again so you hide your knot and cut it off. And that component is finished and you're ready to attach it to the suede. How are we doing? Are we all getting it on there? Nobody's screaming. Okay. So when you have it here and you have your thread cut off, you are ready to attach the suede. So we're going to move ahead to the suede. And then if we need to come back for somebody that needs to see these again, I'm good for that. So, oops, why am I going in the wrong direction? So you're going to cut two pieces. These are the pieces that your core, your tubing is going to go on, approximately 5 inches long. Now, I would measure your wrist if I were you. And what I did with mine is remember I told you I'm intending to put a little bit of chain on here on the end. So I didn't want it to be too floppy, but I wanted to be able to have the oops, you cannot see that at all. The space to put the chain. You still can't see that. So trust me, I've got I cut mine 5 inches long and I have about an inch gap between them. So by the time I put my whatever hook I'm going to use and a little bit of chain there or a couple jump rings, it fits me. But if you've got it, I have a fairly big wrist for my body size. But if you've got a smaller wrist, you might want it smaller. If you've got a longer wrist or a larger wrist, you might want it bigger. But most of the time, I'm good with about a 6.5 to 7 inch bracelet. So I cut roughly 5 inches. And you need 2 pieces that are that long. And then you need 1 piece that's that long cut in half so that you have 2 portions. And you might, depending on, you're going to do a little overlapping if you haven't cut that 3rd piece already. Cut it, I would give yourself maybe an extra inch of playroom for that 3rd piece that you're going to cut in half.
Belinda, where did you knot it after you did your last little?
I
bead
just,
flower?
when it came out of the last place, I just knotted it around that core. And then I ran my needle through the next bicone so that the knot got hidden. Got pulled inside the next bicone or the next whatever bead is there.
You don't tie it to the little remainder of where you started the thing initially?
Well, you can make your
Right.
knot that way if you, yeah, if you wanted, you could do that. And
I
then,
still have a little bit left over at the end.
yeah, but then you've got to run both ends through your beads because you don't want that knot to show and you don't want to.
Oh,
So that's okay. I mean, if you've got enough to thread your needle on that end you started with, that's fine. It would work.
good point.
Okay, so once you have these cut, then you're going to feed it through your tubing or your coil or whatever you're using there. So do you remember way back when we did a coiled bead? So we made the coil and then we put it on our gizmo again and we made a coil on top of a coil. I think those would be really pretty here. So I want to show you how to finish this. If you're still thinking about, if you didn't buy the tubing and you're still thinking about how to finish it, keep thinking and don't rush into doing anything. Because I think, you know, afterwards, after you see where we're ending up, you may get inspired. You could also, you know, I'm brainstorming here. What have we done in the past? You could make a series of jump rings and string a bunch of jump rings here. That would be pretty. You could, I think we never did get around to doing this, finishing this necklace. I think that was one I promised you and then we somehow got detoured, but I had you buy the copper tubing to put on this cord that we made. You could use a piece of the copper tubing if it goes with your beads. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Once you have this strung, then you're going to go back to putting it together. Now, I want to tell you what I did. And then afterwards, I'm really great at saying, oh, this would have been an easier way to do this. I sewed mine together and then tried to hook the end caps on them. And in other words, I did what I'm going to show you on the slide, which is one way to do it. But I'm still not 100% happy with the way that I did it. So I want to show you how to finish this. If you're still thinking about, if you didn't buy the tubing and you're still thinking about how to finish it, keep thinking and don't rush into doing anything. Because I think, you know, afterwards, after you see where we're ending up, you may get inspired. with the length of this center piece. If you can see on my wrist, it works, but here it just doesn't look as neat to me as I want it. And then afterwards I thought, you know, I could have done the ends and then worked on the center first. So just a thought. So I'm going to show you what I did to complete the center, and then I'll go back and restate what I just said as another option. I took my suede and I fed it through that in loop we made. And then I'm going to end up flapping this over, which is why I need that little extra space there. And I'm going to sew it down. So I threaded my needle and I made a knot here, which is going to be hidden when this flaps over. So I made a knot. And then I'm going to put a little bit of my E6000. Not a lot, because that stuff gets really, really messy. So if you think your sewing is secure, skip it. But again, you know me, I'm so afraid something's going to come undone. So I put a little bit of my E6000. And then I folded it over. So here's a better look. I actually, and I didn't take a picture of this, before I started doing the sewing, because once I do the sewing, the stitching with it, I don't have any space to do this. I took a clamp, you know, from my office. Of course, I can't reach one right now, but just some kind of a clamp. So anything you have that will, well, here's a monster clamp. This was not the one I used, but just something like this. And I clamped it down and let it dry until I thought the glue was dry, because I didn't want to have it come unglued, and I wanted to make sure it was glued. And then I just put a bead here and secured it. So on this sample, I put one bead. On this one, I don't know what provoked me to do it. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but I just put 3 beads and made it like a little pyramid. It's truly up to you. I'm muting for a minute. Okay, another spam call, of course, because it's Friday. So once you have that on there, then you're going to line them all up, all 3 of them, with that in the center. So you do that on both sides and make them the length you want, and then put your ribbon clasp on it and secure your ribbon clasp. Now, as I just said, if I were to do this again, I think what I would do is secure my ends first. Just go ahead. Don't worry about sewing this on yet. Just take my 3 pieces, do my end. If it's been a while since we did the ribbon clamp and you've forgotten what we did, what I would do, because I'm going to use a little bit of glue. They say you don't have to, but I would put all 3 of them together and either clamp them or tape them or do something so they line up. Put a little bit of glue there, put the ribbon clamp down, take your pliers and pinch it and let it dry. And I would do that on both sides. So I would have my 2 outside pieces with the tubing finished. The 2 inside pieces would just be half pieces dangling in the wind. And then that gives me more flexibility for the length, because then I will do what we just did. I will feed it through the loop and adjust how long I want it so that it's the right length. And I can trim it, I can leave it longer and make more beads, stitches in here and embellish it. But I found I did it, you know, ass backwards, pardon the expression. And it makes it harder to get it lined up on the ends. So I think that would have been an easier way to do it. Does that make sense to anybody? Okay, I'm seeing a couple of heads nod, yeah. And eventually, of course, here I am gluing it. And here's before I stitched it, but you can see you can get a little bit, if you're not careful, you can get a little bit of glue there that's ugly if anybody can see it. So be careful with your gluing. And then, which I haven't done on mine, you will attach a jump ring to your ribbon clamps. Put any kind of a hook you want. So if you purchased a hook, if you are making a hook, a good S hook would work nicely here. And on the other end, put another jump ring and either a link of chain or a series of jump rings that you can hook into. And I was just thinking, I wonder if our rose clasp would look good with that. Maybe not, because there's a lot going on there. But remember, when we did these, wasn't all that long ago. You could do something similar to our rose toggles. Okay, so where do we need to go back and review?
Linda, what would you do if I have round leather?
Brown leather?
Yes,
Oh, round leather,
round.
not brown. Same thing. So just, so, you know, you can stick that needles through the center of the round and I would glue it and I think it would work the same way. So in fact, my round leather that I was going to use that wouldn't fit through my tubing is round. So, and I'm not 100% happy with the suede, so I think I am going to end up redoing this with the round leather. I'll have to do, one of you suggested the coiled instead of the tubes, and that's what I'm going to do since my tubes don't fit, and I refuse not to buy more. That said, I actually found a use for something that I bought that remember when we did the beading and we used the slide tubes at the end? When I was at Bead Factory, God, a long time ago, I bought those slide tubes and I thought they were so intriguing that I bought little ones. They're probably a ½ inch and I don't know what I'm doing with them. So they've been sitting there. I have to make a gift for, actually, I'm going to ask you what you think of this idea because it sounded good to me. For my committee, for my convention that I do in for the international group that's coming up in the end of June. And I bought these years ago, really nice little embroidery scissors when I was president of the guild. And then there was never an appropriate time to give them to people. So I've got a bunch of them. I thought I will make a peyote beaded scissor fob and peyote their name in it, and then attach that on one end to attach that little slide clasp to the scissors, and on the other end then put a tassel of beads. What do you think about that as a gift for someone?
I think it's
That
an
sounds
awesome
cool.
idea.
That I'm always looking for what can I give them. You know, it never should be a big expensive gift. And I gave them a pair of my wire lace earrings last year, so I don't want to give them wire lace again. So I thought, maybe that would work. So
That sounds very unique. That's just different. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it's, you know, it's different and it's handmade.
it just, and I thought, oh, I can use those that I bought, which is nice. Because if you saw my messy craft room with all the things that I purchased that I haven't used in forever.
So did you say craft room, C-R-A-F-T,
Yeah.
or crap room, C-R-A-P?
Take it as you heard it. If the shoe fits. And you know,
I was thinking, depends on the day.
Well, mine's getting worse. I need to clean it. And then I was looking for something else for the projects that we're working on. And I just started pulling things out again. And I went, it started bad and it's not getting better.
Well, my new great system was taking a Ziploc baggie, putting the date on it and the name of the project. And as I gathered the pieces together, they'd all go in it and I'd have everything in one baggie. Problem this morning is I have no idea where I put the baggies. So now all the pieces were lost.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's funny because I was just doing that today too.
And I always think when I buy something, you know, you all know the gym show is this weekend, right? And so I'm contemplating going down there because there are a few things I need. And I always come home with the bag and I think, now I'm going to file this and put everything exactly where I'll know where it is. Well, that good intentions, but not reality. And now that I teach on Zoom to you guys, my office is as bad as my craft room, is as bad as the area I work on in the family room, is as bad as my studio. So it used to be sort of confined. Now it's, yeah.
I hate that when it migrates.
Yeah. And it has its own personality. It doesn't stay contained at all.
Well, to make it worse, I've tried to work out in my studio and it was just too cold. So the next thing I know is I've got a glass grinder on the counter in the kitchen, and then pretty soon the ring saw, and pretty soon came my gutting board, and I'm going, now how do I keep, and this is ski week, so the kiddo is not in school. So now I've got a 4-year-old, he cannot touch anything with glass on it.
And well, my husband and I kind of do the same thing. When we remodeled the kitchen a few years ago, we built this nice island with the understanding that it was for me to cook on. And it became shortly after that his desk, because he doesn't like working in the office. He likes to be in the center of the house. And so that was okay, but I relegated him at the time to one end of the island. And then as he works on different projects, paperwork comes out and it's spread all over my island and I can't cook because there's no room. So it's like, okay.
You can't cook, then he owes you dinner out, you know?
Well, I'm so short that when we built the island, we built it shorter than other counters so that I could knead bread on it and, stir without feeling like my elbows were up to my ears. And so now I just tell him I can't bake for him because there's no room on the island to work, but doesn't seem to motivate him to move things. So
Linda?
Mhm.
I have some black leather that I got, and I think it's 2 millimeters or 2.5, something like that. But it's very stiff. When I try to go through the little bead loop we created and fold it over, it's kind of hard to do.
Do what you can and then clamp it and then hold it over a pot of boiling water. Don't put it in the water, but let the steam come up while it's clamped. And it should, so for instance, bend it around here, hold it down with a paper clip, or if you've got a clamp of some form, a clippy from your hair, something that will just secure it, and then hold it over the steaming water. And the steam should make that decide that it's going to do what you want it to instead of what it wants to.
So if it's a leather, smooth round leather cord, can you sew that the way you did your,
Yeah, you
your
should be able to
suede?
just go through the center of it. It's gonna take a little elbow grease, and it may actually take a sewing needle instead of your beading needle, because depending on how, after you've made it more pliable by steaming it, then you should have a better chance of getting through it. But if it's really, really stiff, you're gonna need a stiffer needle, because I think a beading needle would break.
It's kind of a shiny leather. Won't the threads show?
Well, your knot is in between here. And then your bead that you're sewing on top of it hides the thread. So you just come around and it'll come out here, but only maybe once or twice. Let me back up and show you. So I had my knot in here. I came up, put on the bead, went back down and came up, went back down, went through the center to hide a knot. So you don't have a lot going on that you can see. Now,
Okay.
maybe, maybe once you glue it in there, you may not need, because this bead here is truly embellishment if it's glued. Yeah. The one I saw done this way, they hadn't glued it, but I was fearful that mine wouldn't stay with just a couple of passes through with the thread. But if this glue is holding this, you don't even need to add the bead. It's just embellishment.
And the thread you use, it's the same thread you're beading with?
Yeah, I just used my fire line
Oh, okay.
because it was more likely you wouldn't see it. Yeah, but if you got black cord, I think mine was white. Well, yeah, it is white because we've seen it all along. But I could have used the smoke, which you wouldn't see at all, even if this were shiny leather.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else need to see another slide, or can I get out of share screen and come back and see all your beautiful faces? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. It's so nice to see you instead of just talking to my computer.
Belinda, do you think you're really going to go to the gym show? Between the raindrops?
I'm thinking they tell us that Sunday is supposed to be not rainy. So there are things I need because I've got a lot of back orders on kits. So I either have to go down and get them or order them online. And
The last couple of times, the guy that I like for cabochons, Bennett, has not been there. And I understood that he was supposed to be at this one.
oh,
If he's there, could you let me know?
yeah.
Because I will try to go on Sunday, maybe, if he's there. Because that's the only thing I need is from him. Also, do you get a wholesale postcard to go in on the wholesale hours?
I do, but it's during this class.
Yeah, and they don't honor it other than those 2 hours, right?
So
Okie dokie.
I have to pass. So
Mona sent us passes, which I can forward, but last time I forwarded stuff to everybody, it was apparently I did it wrong and the world got the passes. So I'll be happy to forward, because you just have to print them out.
that would be nice. I have mine for, from that they give you when you go in from last time, but that would be nice if you forwarded it to everybody, because
See.
Sounds good.
yeah. I agree with you though, Pat. The people that I want to buy for haven't been there in a while. There's 3 or 4 vendors that.
Yeah, it keeps getting smaller and smaller of the main people. I've got one guy that I like, even though it's Chinese crystals, I'm using the real tiny ones as just accents and they really don't matter. that they're not Swarovski or Preciosa or whatever. So I get crystals, and I hope to see the guy with the cabs. That's pretty much it, except for Jennifer Stones, I think, over on the far wall. Occasionally she's got a cab or a donut or something. But other than that, I mean, all the vendors that I used to love to see there, Unicorn, Patricia Healy,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
they don't go anymore, and I can't blame them, you know.
It's become more finished jewelry and clothing. Yeah, so
And big ass rocks.
So you can describe it. It's aiming in an email.
yeah. I don't know. I each time I hope that somebody will be back, because there were 3 or 4 that I really liked buying from. And then I would find, I like going through like the guy that used to be in the back. Dang. Another spam. The guy that used to be way in the back, he always had a bunch of junk, that I could always find something I needed out of, in terms of cabs and focal beads. But he hasn't been there in a couple of years. So
Yeah.
but that doesn't stop me from spending money. So
Me either. I always have something.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you wouldn't mind having my phone number with you,
Yeah.
and just say, hey, I'm here and he's here, then I can trot down there possibly.
Okay.
I'd really appreciate it.
Good. I will look. So no guarantee I'm going, but that's my plan right now. So
Okay.
but when they said
Well,
rain, I too thought I'm not going down there in the rain, but if it's sunny Sunday, I might.
Well, I don't mind a little tiny bit of drizzle, but this ain't drizzle.
Now
I'm ready to get on the ark.
Yeah. If anybody else goes just before Sunday, let me know if Bennett is there for cabs. He's always in the first building behind or around Goddess usually. Alrighty, I've got to go and fix lunch for the hubby. We'll see y'all next time.
I go online because usually they post the list of vendors who are there.
Yeah, but they don't update it decently.
Oh, okay.
I've often found that somebody's listed and they're not there. The same thing with Kamal. I used to love to see Kamal with the chains and the head pins and what have you. They're not there anymore either.
Are they still even in their shop up here?
I think they are. The one in Anaheim.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as I know, they're doing now the International Gem Show, which is the high-end diamonds and what have you. I've seen them advertised at that show, but no longer at Costa Mesa. It's been, again, pre-pandemic and even before.
You have to watch them too when they weigh things because they put a thumb on the scale. So
Yeah, you got to be, all of them, you got to be watchful.
but I've heard more about Kamal than any other vendor. So
Yeah, my main thing I would get from them was the gold-filled tiny bald head pins. And they'd say there's, 50 in the package or 25 or whatever it is. And those were pretty okay. But in terms of weighing out chain or what have you,
yeah.
All righty. Thank you all. See you soon.
And so next week we will do makeup. So anything that we have not finished, or I don't know if you guys, I can't remember if it was any of you or somebody else that has come, student that has come and left us. But I know originally people would say, I took this class because I wanted to learn how to fix a piece. This would be a really, really good time to bring that along and have us brainstorm how to fix it. So if it's an easy fix, we can say this is what you do. If it's missing beads, we can tell you how to improvise, and it just be finish projects and brainstorm. So I'm going to stop recording because the video doesn't need to be this long.